At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu. At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
You're watching Worldview 2, a Brannon House television network.
The Tamara Scott Show. Tamara has served as the state director for one of America's largest pro-life, pro-family public policy organizations. In 2007, Tamara was named one of America's top 10 most influential kingmakers by the Religion News Association. Tamara has spent years proclaiming and defending the values of a Christian worldview that is the foundation of our constitutional republic. And now, here is your host, Tamara Scott.
Hey everybody, welcome. It is July 23rd, 72325, and we thank you for joining us on the Tamara Scott Show, where we help you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home. And they do, and they're harsh. But there's nothing that's going to hit us that God can't handle and hasn't already prepared a way for us to take if we'll call on Him. All right, so joining me today is Tom DeWeese. I have to tell you, I was interviewing Tom DeWeese before 2000. I think it was before 2000 in a small little Christian radio station south of Des Moines, Iowa. He was one of the first big guests I went after. He had a national organization, and he was the watchdog in Washington, D.C. We have several now, and we're thankful for so many of them. We need them all because there are how many unelected bureaucratic agencies who do rules and regulations, who destroy the good bills by the way they enforce them, and then just create other laws through their rules and regulations. So we need several, many. We'll take them all who are helping us guard our freedoms and our liberties. But Tom DeWeese was the first one I came across when I was doing radio 28 years ago, I think. And so he was with the American Policy Center, and he was already helping protect property rights and our sovereignty. So 30 years now, he's been doing that. Tom DeWeese, thank you for joining me.
Hey, Tamara, it's great to be with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew how scared I was to call your organization and say, would you come on this radio show? We were on a terrestrial radio station back in the day. That's all we had. And it was a small Des Moines, central Iowa station. But you were so good to visit us anytime I asked and give us just incredible information. So thank you, my friend, for being in this fight. It's a long fight, a long haul.
I'm thrilled you called me today. So
thank you. All right, so let's hop to it, because as I said, they're coming at us from all different levels. And if it's not the unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats, it's the oligarch, it's the WEF, which you've spoken against. It's the WHO, it's all these other groups coming at us. All right, so let's talk first. You have a great article about, and you have a newsletter. If people want to know more, how do they find you at American Policy Center?
our website is americanpolicy.org. And on there, you can sign up to receive our regular emails that we send out. And there's a 30-year archive of articles on there, give you all kinds of background information and so forth. So just go on there and give us your email address, and we'll send you any of our new things, new alerts, new articles, anything like that. You can stay up with what we're doing.
And let me just tell people, you were one of the first, and it was in that same radio station. So I remember it had to be before 2006 because I transferred radio stations that one was being sold. And so they helped us put us on another network. But you were talking, and I know it because of the station I was in. You were talking about biometric reading, being able to take photos and images of people on the street, and because of the cameras that were going to be global, being able to identify people, their pulse rate, if they were nervous, how they were behaving. You were talking about that before 2006. And look where we're at today. People are just now starting to talk about it, and people think those groups are the ones who are spot on and the cutting edge. You were talking about it 25, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah. These things this is not overnight. And something that people really need to understand for the very basis of this, we are not dealing with policies that are coming from confused politicians who think, oh, this is a good idea, let's put that in. This is a global agenda. That's what I've been trying to reveal all these years, telling people what this is all about and what the dangers of it are. And what you're talking about there today, beyond the biometrics thing, we are now into AI, artificial intelligence, which is taking over everything. And I'll be honest with you, I am terrified of this because it has the ability to have computers dictating to us how we live, destroying human society. If you think that is a crazy thing to say, they are able to take video, create video, make it look like, let's say, for example, President Trump, they want to do everything they can to hurt him, and they can make a video that makes it sound like he's completely out of his mind and put that out there, and it looks like it's real. You won't be able to trust news shows. Is this created? Is it real? Is reality, has it left us? This is something I'm very, very concerned about. And, there's no freedom in any of that. And there are some very evil forces behind it. So, yeah, this is where it leads to.
So if our viewers see me making, you are spot on, and I'm writing down, I think everything that's on video on the internet should have a date, an origin, whether it's the organization or the location. I think it should have both of those so that we know where they came from. I just think we should just have that, because what you're talking about is so key. It could be used as evidence. It could be used in a hearing. We're seeing what this previous administration, the Obama administration, was willing to do to the incoming Trump administration, and what they could manufacture then, what would have been used against him. And I even wondered this. Now that so many people have taken the COVID test and your DNA went to some laboratory you don't know, and who may have it, others voluntarily through 23andMe or myancestry.com, those folks have your DNA, and I think the small print says they can use it, sell it, do whatever they wish. I'm concerned, Tom, and this was not on our docket for today, but I'm concerned, could your DNA, we now use that as evidence in court. I don't think that should be allowed at this point, or I guess I won't say that, that's a strong statement, but I have concerns about someone. Remember, Ben Carson, someone sent him a letter and said, we think you fathered a child, send us your DNA, and thankfully he was smart enough to say no way. But what could someone do?
Yeah, well, that's just it. And they're creating diseases. They're using the DNA. I mean, what gets me is they have patents for diseases like COVID and that sort of thing. Why would you have a patent for a disease? I thought we were just supposed to just do what we can to destroy a disease so we don't have to suffer from it. But they have patents, and we've seen where that's led. And we are up against evil forces, and they will do anything to keep that power. And again, I'm hearing so much in the news, particularly in more conservative news, starting out like Fox News and stuff starts out each night starting to say, are you tired of winning yet? Oh, we're just winning. And the Democrats haven't got a clue of what they're doing, and they don't know how to speak to the people, give them an issue, and golly, it's just all over for them. They'll never get another person elected. Meanwhile, take a look at what they are doing. Look at what's happening in New York City with the mayor running there. Look what's happening in Minneapolis. Radical people who are winning in these elections. And it's just incredible that people are ignoring this. They are determined. The difference between the left and the right, when the right loses, we say, well, I guess that's just, we'll have to try better next time. That's the way it goes. The left says that will never happen again. And they are more determined and they move forward and they have taken control of the election system, the media, on and on and on. Nothing is too small for them to try to take control of it if it has any kind of influence on our lives. And I'm going on and on about this, but this is the root of what we're up against. And if you don't understand that and how deeply entrenched it is, there is no way to win against them. And this is what I try to do: is work with folks to teach them this so they can fight more effectively.
All right. So can I go down one more bunny trail before we go to break in 3 minutes?
Sure.
All right. So we're now seeing Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat, coming out with very strong statements out of the Department of Intelligence, I believe it is, talking about the previous administration and the links that Obama was willing to go to unseat a duly elected president and President Trump, and other information that's come out since. Do you think, will we actually see justice? The American people are becoming rather bitter and just cold and cynical over this, and they're tired of all the hubbub. They either want courts, they want trials, and they want justice. Even if we get justice, even if it comes out, and I believe it should, that there's treason there, do we have the stomach for it as a people and political will as a Congress?
Those are very good questions. And I understand the frustration of people. We have had so much stuff come out and nobody's arrested, nobody's charged. But on the other hand, keep in mind, Trump's been in office for 6 months and he has a massive force against him and has so many things he's had to do to try to move forward. So people shouldn't get too frustrated that all this stuff hasn't happened yet. But whether it will, the Republican Party in Congress and so forth has shown itself over and over again to not be up to the what needs to be done to get things done and to lead and take control. So I understand the frustration of that. I would caution that we need a little bit more time. One of the things that the Trump administration is running into is that the FBI and CIA and these other places have been, knowing he was coming in, have been destroying documents like crazy. So how do they make the case? They've got to be careful how they make it. The worst thing that can happen is they don't make it strong enough or don't do something wrong on it. So they want to make sure they're right. So that's my defense of them. But on the other hand, yes, the Republicans in Congress have got to stand up. They've got to get a backbone. And I keep saying I want public trials and public executions so that this thing moves forward. That's my goal. That's my dream of this. But I understand the frustration, and one way around that, the American people need to speak out and make it clear to their elected officials that they want justice in this, and for them not to back off. So it's up to the people to make that.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Well, sir, you did that excellently and right in the time for us to go to the next break. I'm just going to tell everybody we got our new me, NUMI.com, NUMI.com/TTSS, NUMI.com/TTSS. These are what we call Nutri-Swishes. I call them swish and swallows. Swish for 30 seconds or 3 minutes, whatever you like. And then this will help. The lavender for ladies anywhere along your journey. The blue is got the glyphosate, which helps not glyphosate, glutathione that detoxes glyphosate, one of those products in your ag products that has concerns for folks being linked to cancers and HPPs and diabetes. So the glutathione helps detox the glyphosate as well as graphene oxide, forever chemicals, and heavy metals, something we're all concerned about. As well as the mango colored bottle there on your screen that can help you with memory, mind, and focus. More information? Numi, NUMI.com/TTSS. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Tom DeWeese. And we haven't talked about what we planned, so stay tuned.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
All right, Tom DeWeese is my guest, the American Policy Center. Tom, I asked you on today to talk about one of your most recent articles, though it's talking about something that you were a part of back in 2006 concerning the United Nations and a debate in probably one of the most prestigious areas of the world. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I was surprised back in 2006 to get an invitation from Cambridge University, a 200-year-old debating society called the Cambridge Union, wanted me to come there and debate the issue. This house believes the United Nations is a dead loss. And first of all, when I first got it, I didn't know if it was a real invitation or not. I communicated with them and found out that it was. And the interesting thing about it, there were 6 of us to debate, and there were supposed to be 3 on each side on this thing. And on the other side included Simon Hughes, who was a member of Parliament and was the head of their Liberal Democrats, and Lord David Hannay, the former UK ambassador to the UN, and Salih Shetty, who was the head of the Millennium Campaign for the United Nations. And these were pretty powerful people to be up against. On my side were there was one of the editors for the Guardian newspaper, which is a very leftist publication, and there was another guy who's known in England as Red Ted. When he got up and spoke, I had absolutely no idea what the man said. But they weren't there supporting me, and so I was up against them. It was basically 5-1 in this thing, and it was quite an interesting thing. But what I said in the article was what happened afterwards. And they had a reception for all the debaters were to go there, where the audience could interact with us and talk with us and ask questions and so forth. I was the only one who went. And I still remember this young girl who was a student at Cambridge who came up to me and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. What?" She said, "You really don't believe in redistribution of wealth?" Because that was the issue that I had made most prominent in my opening statement, that every single policy coming out of the United Nations was redistribution of the wealth, that we take everything away from everybody and spread it around. And she asked me that question. I really don't believe in redistribution of the wealth. And I said, "No, it's theft." And she said, "But if people have more than they need, shouldn't they share that with others?" And I said, "Why should they?" And then I went into a whole discussion of, first of all, people trying to make their own personal goals for their life, their hopes, their dreams. They start to work. They work their 40 hours a week. They're trying to put their money aside to build their own personal wealth in order to have their own dreams or live their life as they want. And then along comes a politician who says, "Hey, we'll take 50% of that." By what right? And one of the examples I used in the article was the George Harrison of the Beatles wrote the song "Taxman," And one of the lines in it is, "Be thankful I don't take it all." Well, at that time, the Beatles were being taxed 90% for all the income they were creating, did on their own. By what right does any government have to take 90% of anything that you do? And and what was interesting is I was speaking about all of this, a crowd of people joined around me and were listening to what I had to say. And I looked at her and I said, "Do you have hopes? Do you have dreams for your life?" And she said, "Well, sure, I do." And I said, "Do you really think that a government committee cares what you dream about for your life?" And she didn't understand what I meant by that. She just looked really puzzled. And I went into more of these details. And what was wonderful about it, I mean, there was like 50 people standing around, people starting to have their own discussions. And I kind of laughed because all of a sudden I was hearing a discussion from all of these, a debate from all these folks in England, and where we had a revolution from to get away from them and the king, and they were suddenly standing there in a 200-year-old debating society discussing the issues of Thomas Jefferson and John Locke, and that's what was going on there. But finally, at the end, this young lady looked at me and said, "What an interesting point of view. How can I learn more?" And I thought, wow, I just won this debate. If I got somebody who has come at me from a college education that knows nothing about private property, nothing about personal individual hopes and dreams and all that, everything's government, and she's getting it. And so that was the debate, and it was quite a day.
So I just want to, again, for our viewers, you went. Now, you thought there were going to be other people on your side. They were not, but you still stood. You still spoke the truth in your opening statement, maybe because you didn't know that the rest weren't going to come in behind you, but you spoke the truth very boldly in the opening statement. You also said this, maybe it was in your reception afterwards, but you said the mafia, if they were to take the same action as this government, there would be criminal charges. And I said the same thing. Sometimes I feel like whether it's Social Security or other government programs, they are nothing more than a Ponzi scheme, which other people get arrested for. And so much of what you're saying is so true. It's not just, as you say, it's whether or not legal, it's the theft, the same abuse, the power over someone's life, whether it's just because who's holding the gun. That's the danger here.
The mafia does it. The mafia comes to you and says, "We're going to take half of everything you have." And, our governments, they'll arrest them for that. But if a politician comes up and says, "Hey, we're going to take half of everything you have," it all depends on who is holding the gun as to whether it's legal or not. And because the government's doing it at the point of a gun. You don't comply, what are they going to do? They're going to send the police in, and what do they got? They got guns, they're going to put you in jail. So it's, they're coming at you with the point of a gun. It's just a matter of which one is holding it, and whether what they're doing is legal or not.
Yep. And you also remind us that the free market is the root of innovation and progress, which is why we see America being the lead in innovation, in creation, and inventions in so many ways, treatments, medical treatments, because of what we've allowed in freedom and the competition of the dollar in the private sector. We get into trouble when it's in the government paying for those governmental studies or the scientific studies. We saw that with COVID as well. I want to bounce forward to another topic, because not just our money are they coming after and confiscating and coercing, but Tom, you've talked about this for decades, our property rights. And I see it. We saw it with the WEF coming out with their statement that you would own nothing by 2030 and be happy about it. People think that we fought and won that battle, and I would tell you we have not, because other groups are coming after our land, whether it's a CO2 pipeline, as you know, in Iowa, but just the property tax that they keep hiking on us, or other ways that they're coming after our land. It's at risk. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I've got quotes from the past of environmental organizations and stuff saying we don't believe in private property rights, and this is the attitude of these forces we're up against. That let me share this. This is interesting. This is a quote from William de Blasio, who was the former mayor of New York City. And he said at that time, "What's been hardest is the way our legal system is structured to favor private property. I think people all over the city of every background would like to have the city government be able to determine which building goes where, how high it will be, who gets to live in it, and what the rent will be. This is how, they're moving in to take away private property rights, your ability to have your own single family home, and the whole thing with smart growth, the sustainable development programs, is to move people into these government controlled high rises where they can control the energy that you use, where you travel, where how you travel, because they don't have parking lots for cars. They don't want you to have cars, privately owned cars, in many cases, and using public transportation, using your bicycle, and they can control you there. They can control the food you eat. They can control literally every single aspect of your life. And this is what they're doing in city after city after city, is moving to bring people into these smart growth communities. And they are right now across the country, many communities are moving to get rid of the zoning protections for single family neighborhoods. And these are places where people bought a home because they liked it. It was what they wanted to live in. It's how they have their own backyard for the kids to play in. And, they can live the way they want to. And these forces are looking at that, and they're saying, well, in fact, the mayor of Minneapolis said it's racist. Single family neighborhood zoning protections is racist because this is people who are using that. So they're people they don't want to live next to. They don't have to. And that's totally untrue. We have civil rights laws. You can't do that. If you can't stop somebody from buying one of those homes and living in that neighborhood if they want to. So we've already taken care of that. But what they want to do, this is the argument they're using. They're saying that people who are living in public housing, these are all deteriorated places. This is low income places. If these people could move into those nice neighborhoods, they will get better jobs and better income for their family, and they have a right to live in that better place. That is utterly ridiculous. First of all, where you live has no impact on what your salary will be where you work. There may be better schools there. The reason that these public housing projects are such a mess is because they are run by government bureaucrats, not by private owners. Private owners take pride in their own property. Even if they're in rental properties, they know they need to keep it up or they won't get the renters. And in these public projects, the air conditioning doesn't work. There's broken windows. There are gangs. There are prostitutes. There are drug dealers. All those are there because the bureaucrat doesn't care. He gets his paycheck no matter what. And now they want to move that into your neighborhood. And what is happening as they're doing that is the value of the property is plummeting. And people are moving. They're selling their homes for a song and getting out of there. And you have corporations like BlackRock that are promoting all of this, coming in there and buying that property for a song. And then they're building these public housing and these apartment buildings and so forth, and they're making millions off of it. And they have destroyed these single family neighborhoods. And where are you going to go? What are you going to do?
And they're doing it on purpose. And there's so much more we could say here and so many more directions we could go. If even with the public housing that they're setting up, that will soon be, even if it's not set up as government housing, I think it soon will be in many of these cities. Tom DeWeese is my guest, American Policy Center. I thank you for popping in with us today. I know you have another media hit, so you've got to go, but I thank you for taking time out for us on the Tamara Scott Show and all the work that you do, Tom.
Absolutely love it. Please call me anytime you want. I'm happy to be with you. Thank you.
I'm calling you again this afternoon for something else. So be ready. All right, everybody, stay tuned. Dr. Heidi Klesick is joining us because there is concern. We've talked before about organ transplants, the ethical behavior, and the rushed movement of some of these procurement companies before patients are actually in the state where it's necessary or a good idea, to the patient's danger. So stay tuned, because someone you know someday may face this in a time of crisis, and you need to be able to give them information. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
And my next guest is Dr. Heidi Klessig. She has been kind enough to join us in previous shows. We always learn so much when she can come on. Let me very quickly, I want to, Thomas, if we can just go to that first photo I have of her book, The Brain Death Fallacy. The Brain Death Fallacy, available on Amazon. You can get more information there. And then let's go very quickly to the Fox News story, because this is starting to get more publicity. We've been talking about it for quite some time, thanks to guests like Heidi Klessig. This is a Fox News story. It's becoming more mainstream about the donors' lives endangered by rush transplant procedures. An investigation is finding information on this. And then I just want to go to HHS, because I sent that to Heidi and said, I want to make sure you see this. Well, of course she had. She was already working on something much larger that impacts all of us in ways that we can get involved and make a difference. So having said all of that, Dr. Heidi Klessig, welcome.
And Tamara, for having me on the show.
Always appreciate when you can join us, and you always have a great lesson for us. You put slides together for our viewers. Many people are visual like I am. I do have the HHS document. Should we go to that first, or do you want to go to your slides?
No, that would be great.
Okay, so this just came out July 21, so just this Monday, July 21. HHS finds systematic disregard for sanctity of life in organ transplant system, and it's just talking about the Health Resources and Services Administration revealed disturbing practices by major organ procurement organizations, or maybe just one. But in this, Heidi, do you want to read those bullet points, or would you like me to?
Go ahead.
All right. They examined 351 cases where organ donation was authorized but ultimately not completed. Listen to this, folks. 351 cases where it was authorized but not completed. Here's the details. 101 cases, 29.3% showed concerning features, including 73 patients with neurological signs incompatible with organ donation. At least 28% of patients may have not been deceased at the time the organ procurement was initiated, raising serious ethical and legal questions. And the third bullet point, evidence pointed to poor neurological assessments, lack of coordination with medical teams, questionable consent practices, and misclassification of causes of death, particularly in overdose cases. Heidi, families are hit with this, usually in a crisis situation. Emotions are running high, and there's not a lot of time to do research. And everybody wants their child to live on when they're given a not so great diagnosis. And so I think oftentimes out of emotional basis, these decisions are made. Talk to us about this.
You know, I came to this topic because during my residency training in anesthesiologist, I was asked to anesthetize a brain dead organ donor, and the whole thing made me so uncomfortable. So I went and did my own research, and I was shocked to find that for the last 60 years, doctors, lawyers, Philosophers have been hotly debating whether organ donors are actually dead at the time their organs are procured. And so your viewers, have been brought up to date on this because you've had several shows to help educate them. But it's encouraging now that the federal government is paying attention. And that's why, HHS, the HRSA, and also a U.S. House committee met yesterday to review these problems. If you wanted to show the slide with T.J. Hoover on it, I can explain how this all started. T.J. Hoover in 2021 was supposedly brain dead, but as he was being taken to the operating room, he opened his eyes and started looking around, and his family questioned that, but his family was told, well, that's just reflexes. But a witness on the scene said, he was moving around, kind of thrashing. And then when we went over there, you could see he had tears coming down. He was visibly crying. But whistleblowers claimed that even after 2 doctors refused to remove Hoover's organs, Kentucky organ donor affiliates ordered their staff to find another doctor to perform the surgery. Well, thankfully, they couldn't find another doctor, and the whole thing was called off. Mr. Hoover, as you can see in the picture there, made a very nice recovery. Here he is dancing at his sister's wedding some years later. So this case was reported, and in September of 2024, it was brought before the U.S. House Subcommittee investigating organ procurement. And so that got the ball rolling. This is called the index case. But as they had a chance to look into it, they asked the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network to evaluate the case. And unfortunately, the OPTN said pretty much nothing to see here, move along, and closed the case. So that's why HRSA got involved to do an independent review.
I'm so grateful they did. In the Fox News article that I mentioned earlier, you mentioned this was in Kentucky. And they said in recent investigations by the Health Resource and Services Administration, there were more than 70 canceled organ removals in Kentucky alone that should have been stopped sooner because the patients showed signs of revival, the report stated. 70 in Kentucky alone, Dr. Klesick.
Well, and it's not just Kentucky by any stretch of the imagination. The New York Times on this past Sunday, July 2025, published an article showing that it is not just in Kentucky. In their article, they said they talked to 55 medical workers in 15 different states that had experienced things that made them uncomfortable during organ procurement. So the New York Times article sort of brought this to more people's attention. And in the New York Times article, they didn't really discuss brain death as much as a newer technique called donation after circulatory death. So just to make that clear what that is, I'm going to review that very quickly. Donation after circulatory death was started in the 1990s as a way to increase the donor pool. And people say, oh, well, Dr. Klesick, if my heart has stopped, I'm certainly dead. Why couldn't I donate my organs? Well, the devil is in the details. These patients are not brain dead, but they're either not expected to survive or they have decided that their quality of life is unacceptable. So their death is now a planned event. It's planned to occur at a specific time and place so that their organs can be harvested. And the next slide shows how this works. First, they make the patient do not resuscitate because honestly, all of these people could be resuscitated, but a decision has been made not to resuscitate them. It's sort of ghoulish, really. They put large bore intravenous lines in the patient's groin before they die, and they start giving flushing heparin and other medications to help preserve the organs for the eventual demise. Then the patient's ventilator or any infusions are all stopped, and the patient is monitored and sort of watched until their pulse stops, which again it's a tragic thing. Instead of dying in their family's arms, these people are taken to a cold operating room with glove, gown, and masked strangers who are just standing around waiting for them to die, right? And then after the heart stops, the doctors observe a 2 to 5 minute period, which is called the no touch period, to be sure the patient's heart doesn't resume beating spontaneously. Now, 2 to 5 minutes, it depends on where you live, whether you're alive or dead. In my state of Wisconsin, it's 2 minutes. In other states, it's 5 minutes. It depends on your geography, whether you're dead or alive, basically. But the thing is, everybody knows that people are routinely resuscitated after just 2 to 5 minutes of pulselessness, right? And if you could still be resuscitated, you were never dead. So these people, when their organs are being removed after 2 to 5 minutes of pulselessness, they certainly are not dead yet. And that's why all these entities are finding multiple cases of people who were found to be alive during the organ procurement. Dr. Ari Jaffe in 2007 published a list of a dozen people whose hearts started beating spontaneously without any medical help after up to 10 minutes of cardiac arrest. And some of these people made a full recovery. So it's obvious that it's not death before 10 minutes. We don't really even know. Could it be 12? Could it be 15? But we know for sure, even at 10 minutes after cardiac arrest, this state is not irreversible. And true death is an irreversible state. And because of these concerns, many countries don't allow DCD donation. DCD is banned in Finland, Germany, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Hungary, Lithuania, and Turkey. Again, people are being declared dead in America and in France who would not be declared dead in these other countries. And again, death is a universal phenomenon. It shouldn't be variable depending where on the planet you reside. So back to the New York Times case, this is really a disturbing case that they brought up. It was a case of Misty Hawkins. She was a young, cognitively disabled woman who choked while eating her lunch, and she suffered a brain injury because of not being able to breathe during that period of time. Her parents were told that Misty was never going to wake up, and they were offered this chance to do someone else some good by donating her organs. And her parents didn't want Misty to suffer, and they thought they could bring something good out of their bad situation, so they consented to making her a DCD organ donor. And so Misty was taken to the operating room, removed from the ventilator. It took her 103 minutes to have her heart stop. But when the surgeons sawed through her breastbone, they discovered that her heart was beating and she was gasping for breath. Misty was not dead. So the procurement was called off. It took her 12 more minutes to have her heart stop again and be declared dead a second time. What's really adds to this tragedy is her parents were never told this. Her parents at the time were told that it didn't work out. Misty, it just didn't work out to make her an organ donor. We're sorry. It wasn't until the New York Times contacted this family that they found out what actually happened to her daughter, that her heart had started again on the operating room table after surgeons cracked her breastbone. Can you imagine? I mean, that's so unjust and it's so wrong. And that wasn't the only case. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask, this is just heartbreaking. I can't imagine how those parents feel, but they've sawed through her breastbone. They're cracking her chest open, as you say. Are these patients given anesthesia or painkiller? I know sometimes they push the morphine, which is a concern for me ethically because it just stops movements. It doesn't necessarily stop someone from being alive, although I think it can hasten death. But Misty?
I was interested in that for Misty, and so I checked, and in the New York Times article, it specifically said that it was unclear whether she had received anesthesia. So, it's totally up to who's in the room at the time. I mean, some anesthesiologists do, some don't. There's no universal standard.
There's a hospital record somewhere. They know.
You would think, yeah. But the New York Times, Misty wasn't the only one. I mean, they talked about many other cases. I mean, in New Mexico, a woman was subjected to days of preparation for her donation, even after her family said she seems to be regaining consciousness. And she actually did, so she was subjected to those large bore IVs in her groin and being heparinized for organ donation. In Florida, a man was crying and biting on his breathing tube, and people were saying, it doesn't look like he wants to be withdrawn from his ventilator, but they pushed right on and gave him the morphine and then harvested his organs. In West Virginia, doctors actually had a paralyzed man in the operating room table coming off of sedation, and they asked him to blink whether or not he wanted to become an organ donor. And he blinked, no, I don't want to. It was the only way he could communicate. I mean, how ridiculous that you're in this horrible situation and gloved, gowned, and masked strangers are asking if they can cut you apart, and all you can do is blink. So these cases are, as you said, very disturbing.
Disturbing
that's why.
We've got to go to our break. We'll be right back, and we can continue right on with Dr. Heidi Klasick. Very disturbing information, but information you need to have to fully protect those you love. Be right back after this message. Thank you for staying with us. I'm talking with Dr. Heidi Klasick. We say on this show, we're for adult audiences. One, we speak in complete sentence and full-on conversations, not sound bites. But two, we tackle the tough topics, whether people are ready for them or not, because we want to give you the best information. You weigh it out, you pray it out, you decide, and you discern for yourself. My guest is Dr. Heidi Klasick, and we're talking about the brain death fallacy and the investigation now taking place in Washington, D.C., and the committee that is happening on it. Dr. Klasick, I had to cut us off for break, so I want to give you a chance to finish that sentence as we speak in full-on complete sentences here, but I also want to give you a chance to anything else you want in this 7 minutes, and then I do want to talk about the committee that's taking place and how our viewers can possibly have action in helping change this for the protection of all patients.
U.S. House Committee. So yesterday, July 23rd, 2025, the U.S. House Energy and Commerce Committee is who's been tasked with evaluating what's been going on in the transplantation industry. They reviewed the findings that you read earlier in the program of the HRSA investigation that found that the organ procurement and transplant network was inadequately policing itself on these cases. And I was so impressed with the testimony of Representative Kat Kamek from Florida. She reviewed the Misty Hawkins case that we talked about before the break, and she also brought up the case of an Illinois donor with Down syndrome whose heart started beating again during the removal of her kidneys. Again, she was declared dead a second time, and that shouldn't be. I mean, if you're dead, you should be all dead. You shouldn't be, mostly dead and then resurrect yourself on the operating room table while they're taking out your organs. Representative Kamek had very hard words for Dr. Formica, the past president of the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network, as he on camera, he admitted that he had no primary knowledge of these cases that had happened on his watch. So the Energy and Commerce Committee is going to be meeting further. They're scheduled to meet again in September to see what types of action should be taken going forward forward. So, if you, as a viewer, have a representative who is on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and you can find out simply by Googling the Energy and Commerce Committee, please contact them. Please register your horror at what's going on in the transplant industry and encourage them to make it right. So I think I've been thinking about this a lot. This is such a tangle. It's a tangle of moral problems, medical problems, legal problems. I mean, how are we going to get out of this? And what I think our path forward involves, first of all, is that the public needs full transparency about how death is being declared prior to organ and tissue procurement so that we can give informed consent. If we're not being transparent with people, how can anybody make proper end-of-life decisions? I mean, when you went to the Department of Motor Vehicles and got your driver's license and they asked you if you wanted to be an organ donor, did they give you any type of information? Did they have you sign a consent form? No, of course not. No one is ever told. I mean, the three types of donation going on now, the brain death organ donor. Did you know brain death today is not being declared in accordance with U.S. law? The code or the guideline that doctors follow does not meet the letter of the law, which requires the irreversible cessation of all functions of the entire brain, including the brain stem. In fact, the most recent brain death guideline allows brain death to be declared in the presence of ongoing brain function. The DCD donation, we've seen all these people from the reports of the House Committee and the New York Times article that are waking up on the table during the removal of their organs. For DCD donation, we need at least 10 minutes and probably more. The reason doctors don't wait that long is if you wait over 10 minutes, most of the organs are no longer suitable for transplant. They begin to break down. So we need to think of the patient first. The value of the patient should be our biggest priority, regardless of the needs of others. So for DCD donation, we need to wait for 10 minutes. And the NRP donation, I can't even begin to tell you how horrifying this is. They declare you dead because your heart stops, but because they want to harvest your heart, they begin surgery by clamping off the circulation to your brain to make you brain dead on purpose. Then they resuscitate your heart so it's in good shape for transplant. This is playing fast and loose with the law under the UDDA. First, they declare you dead by the circulatory standard. Then they make you brain dead, so you're brain dead under the neurological standard, and then they restart your heart again, showing that your heart was not irreversibly stopped, which is the legal standard. So doctors are playing fast and loose with the medical, moral, and ethical standards we need to have. So I would encourage your viewers, call your representative. At the same time, I have great compassion for people who need a transplant, and I would encourage people to consider living donation, in which both the donor and the recipient remain alive after the procedure. You can do a living donation for kidneys, for liver. They can do a lobe off of the pancreas. They do lung transplants. The patient gets a lobe of a lung from each of two donors. Living donation is completely ethical. And so I'm hoping with the consternation we're finding with the current system, we don't forget that there are ethical ways to do this. But in the meantime, I would recommend that everybody right now refuse to be a registered organ donor. If you register, you are liable to have these things happen to you. You don't have to be registered to be a living donor. If you want to give an organ to a friend or a loved one or even a total stranger, living donation is a good option. But I would recommend everyone should refuse to be a registered organ donor at this time, until all this is sorted out at least. And
absolutely. If people want to reach out to you, can you tell them how?
Or if you want more information, my website is Respect for Human Life, respectforhumanlife.com. My book is The Brain Death Fallacy. And on my YouTube channel, I've been working on a series of short educational videos. They're 5 to 10 minutes long on the different types of organ donations so that you can understand what they're all about. On X, I'm at Heidi Klessig, MD. And I try to post something almost every day just to give people the education they need. Because if you're not informed, how can you make these end-of-life decisions? When the worst day of your life happens, that's not the day to start evaluating these things.
Absolutely. Dr. Heidi Klesick, I can't thank you enough. One, this is not an easy topic likely to discuss, to investigate, or to share information on. Viewers aren't always ready. I know this, and we have to talk about it anyway, just like I did human trafficking decades ago before people were ready. You have to. That's what helps us get ready so we can have meetings like the one you're talking about that just took place in Washington, D.C. Thank you for that. You're also helping families who are in harm's way or in hurt. They're in a hurting situation, making decisions they might not otherwise make. Thank you for that. Folks, she's given you the information on how to get a hold of her. Great show today. Another incredible show tomorrow with Rhonda Miller on who was the first Epstein before Epstein. You won't want to miss that. To everybody else, we tell you, make it out, weigh it out, pray it out for yourself. Make discerned decisions from your discernment, decide for yourself, and we tell you to live boldly, love better, laugh bigger, be encouraged, and never be complacent.